Hi everybody, this is Dino Chris from Prehistoric Facts. This is a special episode, and this is going to be a redux of a special type of dinosaur, and that would be Allosaurus. And so Allosaurus means different or other reptile, and lived in the Jurassic period 155 to 145 million years ago, and would actually be in length of between 30 to 40 feet, and would have a between 2 to 4 tons in weight. And this was a carnivore that lived in the Jurassic period. And Allosaurus is mostly found in North America and parts of Europe. And there is believed to be some specimens that have been found in Tanzania, but I don't think that's really going to be the case. But it seems that Allosaurus is mainly Europe and North America. And so, Allosaurus, when we actually look at this animal in terms of anatomy, we actually see that it was one of the first large predatory dinosaurs to come around into the late Jurassic period. And so this was actually a very unique feature. This was a unique thing for predatory dinosaurs, is that they could start getting bigger, competing with size for their prey. But even though their prey is still much larger than what they are. So Allosaurus's prey is mainly going to be like Stegosaurus, Camptosaurus, maybe Dryosaurus, Diplodocus, Apatosaurus, Camarasaurus, some of those types of dinosaurs. But I don't think Allosaurus would be attacking a Brachiosaurus that much. But even though they could go after their young, but it's mainly Allosaurus is going after the medium to large sauropods. Mostly, but we do find evidence that Allosaurus has actually hunted Stegosaurus. We find bite marks on like some of the back plates of Stegosaurus. We find sauropod bones that have these gouges from bites from Allosaurus. And Allosaurus is the most common predatory dinosaur in the Jurassic period in the type of layer of rock that is called the Morrison Formation. The Morrison Formation is just littered with dinosaurs. That's why the Jurassic period is kind of considered to be the beginning of the golden age of dinosaurs. And so, in terms of anatomy, when we actually look at the skull, this is a sculpture of Allosaurus skull. And so Allosaurus, when we actually look at it in terms of like where its eyes are going to be positioned, the eyes are going to be pointing sideways. They're not going to be pointing straight forward like Tyrannosaurus Rex. So this thing had very poor depth perception, and so this thing would not see anything in front of it for that much of its time. And so this thing was actually going to be coming from the side and actually attacking from the side. And so that's pretty much what it's going to be going to. And the teeth of Allosaurus are going to be more like this. You kind of see it's almost like a Tyrannosaurus Rex tooth, but it's actually not. And so Allosaurus has still got thinner teeth than T-Rex. And most of the teeth in Allosaurus are not as, in terms of the roots, are not as deep as Tyrannosaurus Rex's would go. So the teeth of Allosaurus would have these serrations on both front and back, and so they actually would be designed for slicing. And so there is a belief that Allosaurus's skull was able to withstand some unique amount of pressure. And what they believe is that Allosaurus probably opened its jaws, pretty much opened its jaws, probably a good, say, about over 45 degree angle. So probably would actually have its lower jaw probably go down as far as here, and use its skull as an axe. And so they believe that the muscles in the neck of Allosaurus, since Allosaurus has got a longer neck compared to other large predatory dinosaurs, that it just slam its skull right onto its prey, mainly like on Camptosaurus. But we find bites on Stegosaurus that are more likely that it probably like took a bite instead of actually using its head as an axe. So I believe Allosaurus is probably more of a biting predator, not really using its head as an axe that much. So do I think it might have a much powerful bite? Possibly. I mean, because it probably didn't have those strong muscles in its jaws to actually be able to actually have its teeth hit the bone but not go through bone. And so that's why the teeth of Allosaurus are not designed to crush bone that much. And we find injuries on Allosaurus all the time. And so we find injuries like on the ribs, we find injuries on the skull, we find injuries on the tail, we find injuries on the back, we find injuries on the legs. It's because they were hunting like regularly. And so there is so many injuries on Allosaurus specimens. Look at Big Al, the original Big Al. Big Al's got like 19 injured bones in his body. That is a lot for one predatory animal, and that usually could actually, for most mammalian predators, that usually is the end of it. A broken bone is pretty much the end of basically being a solitary predator. But if they were living in a pack, they could possibly take care of each other. And so Allosaurus was probably one of the first few dinosaurs to actually start one of the first large predatory dinosaurs to actually have these social groups. And we find a lot of Allosauruses in Dinosaur National Monument, and even the Cleveland Lloyd Quarry. Those are very, very big hot spots to find Allosaurus. And so Allosaurus is kind of mainly found in the Rocky Mountain regions of North America. They've even been found in Montana. And so but they're very rare in Montana compared to Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, those types of places. But they are everywhere. They're nearly everywhere in the Morrison Formation because they were pretty much living in the floodplains, with all these sauropods and Stegosaurus and Camptosaurus. And so that's probably the reason why it actually had to be in the floodplains, because its prey was there. And so its legs are actually kind of long for a predatory dinosaur, so it probably had a speed between 20 to 25 miles per hour. So it was going at a pretty good pace for a predatory dinosaur for being that big, even though it's considered to be now a medium-sized predatory dinosaur, not a large predatory dinosaur, but is very close to being a large predatory dinosaur. And Allosaurus claws are actually very large. This is just a baryonyx claw, even though I kind of forgot my Allosaurus claw, but this is just a point of reference. So Allosaurus claws are very large, and they got massive hands, these huge arms, and so and Allosaurus claws are rounded underneath, so they're not really designed for cutting and slashing. They're more designed for grab and hang on type of claws. So when you look at large carnivorous dinosaurs, they have these like rounded bits under these rounded underside of their claws. That means they're not slashing; they're actually grabbing and hanging on. So Allosaurus probably used its arms pretty well, and so it probably had a good amount of strength on those arms, probably a bit stronger than T-Rex in terms of arm strength, but it could actually hang on to its prey, whereas T-Rex probably did very little with its arms in terms of grabbing and hanging on. But Allosaurus was a capable predator. The brain of Allosaurus has been known to. There's a couple of specimens that have been found with a endocast that is complete in their skull, and so they actually have the ability to CAT scan Allosaurus and realize that Allosaurus was kind of an intelligent dinosaur for its time, and so it was actually a smart predatory dinosaur. So it was going to be smarter than Saurophaganax and Torvosaurus and Ceratosaurus during its time. So it was pretty much like the wolves or the coyotes of the Jurassic period. And so that's why you're actually going to see Allosaurus actually possibly living in these groups a little bit more and actually calculating a way to actually take down their prey. Allosaurus is mainly going after the old, weak, and the juveniles. It would not be going after the fully grown adults. So that's why with Allosaurus bones, there's been some Allosaurus bones that have these like holes in them. They're from the tail spikes of Stegosaurus, because they probably were killed by Stegosaurus most of the time when they were actually hunting Stegosaurus. So they have to be very careful when they're hunting Stegosaurus. And Allosaurus, in terms of its extinction, was probably going to be more of climatic changes. So whatever happened in the end of the Jurassic pretty much changed the climate so dramatically that like the large sauropods were starting to go into decline in North America and Europe, and then you actually have some of these chewing teeth herbivores, like iguanodontids and all those sorts of animals, and also the armored dinosaurs were starting to come around at that point. Sauropods were still dominating that part of time, but it's just that they were starting to decline because the floodplains that they actually thrive on were starting to disappear because of rising sea levels. And the Cretaceous had a lot of water, and so it was probably a tad bit cooler than the Jurassic, but even though it was at the Cretaceous period might be cooler than the Jurassic, but even though it's still hot, so it's still hot and humid. And also other types of predatory animals were starting to come around, like the Ceratosaurs were pretty much going extinct, and you start to see the Carcharodontosaurs start to appear, and so that's why the Carcharodontosaurs are kind of based off of Allosaurus, and so Allosaurus was kind of like the prototype of what a Carcharodontosaurid would actually be. And in terms of how it possibly behaved, it probably hunted packs, it probably actually had a similar behaviors between crocodiles and birds. So it probably had the types of behaviors of a bird, like mating calls and also display structures, like the two crests on its head right here. So you can see the two crests above its eyes. So probably males flush blood up there to be brightly colored. And also Allosaurus has been known in certain movies and TV shows. It has been shown in Planet Dinosaur, if I remember correctly, and also was actually shown, even though Valley of Gwangi is considered to be the Allosaurus as the antagonist, but even though it looks more like a T-Rex to me, but Allosaurus has been shown in a few films and in TV shows like Walking with Dinosaurs, The Battle of the Big Al, and Planet Dinosaur, all those sorts of these shows that everybody kind of loves. Even in Jurassic Fight Club, it was actually shown in Jurassic Fight Club 3 times. In that show, and so that's why Dinosaur George is considered to be an Allosaurus fan. So Dinosaur George, this is for you. This is basically the Allosaurus episode I think you're actually going to love. And also, by the way, I kind of forgot to mention is that Othniel Charles Marsh actually discovered Allosaurus, and so Allosaurus was actually part of the Bone Wars, and actually kind of was the type of prototype that what large carnivorous dinosaurs were about to become. But even though the arms started getting smaller and smaller, but the largest Allosaurus could actually be close to 40 feet. But even though it's a different species, so we might have to look at that that species and determine whether or not if it is a very large version of Allosaurus. And there's so many species of Allosaurus. Like the most famous one is Allosaurus fragilis. So Allosaurus fragilis is actually considered to be the most famous of all Allosaurus. So anytime you actually go to a museum and you try to find Allosaurus, you actually are just going to be in awe of basically the size of the claws and the hands, that really cool looking skull, the body size, and basically how agile it kind of looks compared to like Tyrannosaurus Rex and Acrocanthosaurus. So it's probably going to be faster than those guys. So that's how you get Allosaurus. Alright, that's it for now. And the next week will be another Answering Questions episode. So if you get any questions about dinosaurs or any other prehistoric life, feel free to email me at dinocris71@gmail.com, or just go on my Facebook page, Prehistoric Facts of Dino Chris. Like the page, you can actually post your questions in the comment section or on the wall. But remember, keep your questions short to the point. You can also follow me on Twitter at CSGRALL. It's my Twitter page. I post pretty cool stuff on there to also take care of people around you, and also for you younger people out there to make sure to listen to your parents, your teachers, and your guardians. It's the best motivation you can have for good education. It's very important to have a good education. So with a good education, you do a good job in the future. And you can see right on over my right shoulder is the Platycarpus skull, and so I figure I'd let you guys show you that to you guys. Wicked looking teeth on this guy, and so at least it almost looks like he's going to aim for my shoulder. And so, alright, that's it for now. I'll see you guys next week.